But I think you could throw Tiger Woods into that mix, too.
And Tiger Woods, right. But Barack Obama subsumes all of that. And what he has done now is he has called the world's attention to himself and to everything that he represents. And so we have to be mindful of the fact that we are no longer in a so-called democratic society, and we are no longer in the type of society that is about giving back to the world, through what we call benevolent leadership. We are now in a cycle where those who would rule us would begin to thin us out as a herd.
Mm-hmm.
Those who would rule us want to eliminate the useless eaters and the useless breeders that we have been named. Those who would rule us already have put into play plans to kill off 2 to 4 billion people on this planet, to rewild North America and Canada, to return animals and different wildlife to places where humans right now occupy. Right. This is not something that is off the top of someone's head. This is not science fiction. This is real. Yep. And, of course, we see Bill Gates being part of that with his, and along with Warren Buffett, putting together what turns out to be the largest and most, the richest nonprofit organization that ever existed. And what was it to do? To vaccinate.
Right.
To spread specific diseases that will terminate genetics, to destroy, to kill off. Because, of course, and I want to say this to the family, if I may, with the highly technological slant or direction that Western society is taking us, it is unnecessary for us to field the amount of bodies to take stations in the assembly line anymore.
That's right.
The assembly line is self-automated, and the people got to think about this. Everything now is working on artificial intelligence. And this is exactly where we're going as far as spiritually, what I'm going to be speaking about, what artificial intelligence really is when it comes to how that will play into the advancement or the transcendence of the human species to its next highest level. But you have to understand, people, that with the highly technological slant and direction that we have taken, less and less do we need human participation. And those who are ruling us know and do not really look at us as anything else but cattle.
Yep. You and I are on the same page with that. We're totally on the same page with that. And I came to that conclusion close to 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, we're headed towards what the transhumanists call the convergence, right, or the singularity. And I've been kind of with those transhumans for a while now, the last 10, 15 years, 20 years actually. And I've been talking about that in my college and my university and everything. And these transhumans cannot do what it is that the early and ancient peoples did, and that is use the internal technology of the divine in order to transcend the species envelope that we have been in over these last couple of 100 million years. They can't do it. They don't have the internal technology, that's biotechnology, that comes from the development through, and I hate to say, it comes from the development of how melanin, which is the intelligence factor that plays into every part of our body, how that plays into, with the mind, together with the mind, as a superconductor of conscious energy, that's supposed to give you all the wherewithals to change your body from what it is in its present state to its next state of evolution. And that cannot happen today because the European has circumvented that circuitry and now are taking on an external circuitry in order to bridge that gap. That is what it is that we have been undermined, where our children have not been taught what to do with those gifts that are being given to them over these next generations. That our attention is being played into using external technology that we would be dependent on because they're the ones controlling the technology and therefore will be controlling our evolution and our transcendence as a higher species. So I say to the brothers and sisters, it's time for us to begin to turn inward and to use mind in order to convert and change the mind of the cell so that the cell now no longer agrees with the habits and consistencies that they want us to become accustomed to that keeps us constructed in this paradigm. It is about time for us to now change our minds, change our visions, change the focus, change the perception so that we no longer are becoming dependent, for instance, on this cell phone that I'm talking to you about.
Right.
That the mind can actually bridge whole distances and talk to one another in that manner. We have failed. This is why so much disease is rampant today, because we have failed to take that inner technology to its next level.
So I agree with you wholeheartedly on this. And for me, you know, as somebody with, you know, European DNA, I totally agree with you. And I think that it's not just a Kemetic experience, although there's, I think, a lot of suppressed knowledge in history and culture from that realm that needs to come out. But I think it's really a planetary consciousness that at some level I think we all get. And I think to your point, the reasons that we've had such a challenge getting to these places where we can communicate without a cell phone, or we can do things that are much more quote unquote organic, is because our systems have been hacked. You know, with the fluoride in the water, with the electromagnetic smog, with all the programming that goes on with television. I mean, these things have been used to create interference in our signal, and I think this is a huge challenge for us right now.
Yes, it is, and I think you've hit it right on the head. We are in electronic smog. We are in a what I call a threshold frequency fence, and then this frequency fence that is surrounding our planet now has been actually created with the help of all the technologies. Now, there was a man, his name is, I believe, Robert Foster, or what was his name, Robert? He had a really breakdown of how consciousness works through the membrane of electromagnetic frequencies. And what he found was that if you have thousands, if not millions of computers being programmed with specific ability to respond to keystrokes, you are essentially creating a consciousness. And that the computers, as a collective energy, are essentially now conscious based upon a continuous hitting of a specific key and a continuous making that computer work a specific function. It can actually predict, and what he has done now is to create a kind of pseudo membrane of consciousness.
Right.
Kind of computer consciousness itself that will become, at one point or another, if given enough time, conscious.
Yeah.
So that you cannot, consciousness is something that's very, very, how do you say it? It's gossamer. It can take the form of anything from a slug to an amoeba, all the way up to man. So if you are doing things, you're creating something that acts like the brain, then you are causing that to become conscious in its own right. Imagine now the Cray supercomputer. The Cray supercomputer has what, a couple of 100 billion or trillion bytes?
Right.
That thing is conscious.
Yeah.
It's actually calculating faster than the human brain at this present time can actually calculate. So this is what we are doing. We are placing on the external frame, on the external level, which is all illusion, which is all terminal, which is the place that the permanent actually expresses itself in the impermanent. We are making the impermanent in the likeness of the permanent, but now disassociating ourselves from the permanent and becoming part of the impermanent.
And that is where we are mistaking what this whole thing about, what we are about as humans to be. We are becoming engrossed in our own creations. And by doing that, we are losing ourselves in our creations and making our creations primary to what we are as creators.
Right.
And this is the problem we have.
Yeah, it's the grand deception.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
And I don't know how we got from Obama to this, but
well, I think it was a natural course of our riffing here. Let's go back to Obama just a little bit. Let's circle back for a second. A huge ray of hope for the black community. A lot of people invested their time to campaign for him, money, emotion, and here is, I think, ultimately a tragic salvo of demoralization. Yet another piece of demoralization for the black community, which is the betrayal of sort of their goodwill and trust with Barack Obama. Since you're very close to that community, can you speak to that and kind of share how his presidency and lack of representation, integrity are affecting people inside the black community?
Yeah, that's the part of it. There is such what is that? Not dependency, but when someone is faithful, like a wife that has been abused and still takes up for the husband and says it's not his fault, it's mine. This is the kind of thing that the black community is now suffering from. Not all of us, but most of us. And that's the problem. We have people who have awakened, and I knew this from the beginning, being what it is that I have done as far as researching so much of the secrets and the bloodlines of all the leaders going back to George Washington and before, and just knowing that for you to even be in that ilk, to have assumed the presidency, you have to have gone through the bloodline or have proven to be at least part of the bloodline or have proven that you will not tip the apple cart. But most of the people that were being courted in the black community were in the church. And they still have the Martin Luther King, we shall overcome, and if it looks like I'm going to see one of my own as president, we have ascended. You should have seen we have arrived. You should have seen a lot of the outtakes of how our people in that community, in the community, especially the church and the Christian community, it was phenomenal. The kind of outpouring of love and hope and okay, we're now on our next level. And most of us in the community who knew that this could not be, we were hushed. We were silent simply because we could not, in the frenzy of the moment, bring reason. Because to bring reason at this point would seem as if you are either a betrayer and they would turn on you and so forth. So what I did was to very strategically play with what they were giving me and give it to them so that they could have it in the long run to look at it. If I could put up Malcolm X and him to play with that, you can now play with the idea that there's something wrong with this picture of you now putting all your faith into this man because he's black or because he has now assumed the presidency and somehow ABC, you're supposed to go along with it because the church teaches you in Christianity that you must support your leaders, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
Well, this was one of the biggest crashes. A lot of people that I knew who voted for him, I mean, they all came back to me and said, I should have listened to you, Brother Valentine. Listen, I mean, how did you know? I said, you have to know who it is that they would put into that office. Okay? You have to know who it is they would put there. And all of the people that have the money to put them there, there are only a few leaders on this planet. There may be 7 people that are actually pulling the strings of all the leaders on this planet, and it all, of course, dovetails back to the Vatican. And you have to kind of put that as a starting point for the years of history that they've been around. You can't be around 2,000 years and not have some influence on this planet.
No, absolutely.